everybody, good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here and get a chance to talk to all of you. It's Northern Ireland Apprenticeship Week, so it seems pretty timely to be doing this Workplus event. And I hope it's also a great opportunity to answer as many as possible of the myriad questions that you may have about apprenticeships. Just a word on how it's all going to work for the next hour or so. Everyone except our lovely panel will be muted. How often have we heard that in the last couple of years? So if you would please type your questions into the Q&A area, and then we'll pick up as many of those as we possibly can and weave them into the conversation. The session's being recorded. It'll be posted on the Workplus YouTube channel. So if there's anything that you do miss, if you're going to nip out and let the dog out or whatever, well, you'll be able to catch up on it there. And of course, there are lots of other videos on that YouTube channel of Workplus that you can catch up with at the same time. So let me introduce you to our excellent panel. If I can just get myself going here properly. It's not a panel of experts, but of real live parents, which is really important for today. We have with us Maria Rogan. Maria's son, Brendon, was an apprentice electrician, and he's now moved on in the great world of work. Ian Wilson's son, Caleb, is doing a software development apprenticeship at Instill. And Vincent McMonagle, whose daughter Jane is doing an HLA, that's a higher level apprenticeship in engineering at Atkins. And also with us, of course, is the man with all the answers, I'm very glad to say, Richard Kirk, founder and director of Workplus. So welcome to all of you. Great to have you all here this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to what you all have to say. So Maria, maybe I could start with you. Tell us a bit about Brendon and his apprenticeship.
Absolutely, Wendy, and I'm delighted to be here. So Brendon was in school and was doing really well, and but he had lost interest in education that way, but he was interested in becoming an electrician, and he registered to become an electrician and attended the local college. It was a difficult journey, but a really rewarding journey. He spent 4 years studying, but obviously on his last year, we were hit with COVID. So when he was supposed to qualify, his qualification had been delayed by a year because of that, but he qualified. And 1 year later, it did take just to do that, but really well worthwhile in his apprenticeship. And he's now a fully qualified electrician.
Did he enjoy his apprenticeship?
He really did, because he's seen the benefit of it. So he was earning as he worked. He was learning through his employer. He was learning much more also through his work colleagues, those who have had years within the industry, as well as attending the local college to ensure his underpinning skills, his knowledge, his training was enhanced in the college, and got really great support through his trainers in the college, as well as his work colleagues and his employer. So it was a real collaboration between the three. And as a parent, I just wanted to support that and make sure he kept his eye on the ball and kept the focus of that.
Now we'll hear more about Brendon as we go through the next hour or so. Ian, if I could come to you and maybe find out a little bit about Caleb and the apprenticeship that he's doing.
Thank you, Wendy. Caleb just completed his A-levels and he applied for an apprenticeship scheme and was accepted. He is studying computing systems level 6, I think is the proper name, computer science, software engineer at the University of Ulster 1 day a week, and then he's working 4 days with them still.
How does he like it?
In Belfast. He loves it. He loves the mixture of being at university and drawing from the expertise there. And he loves being in the workplace, albeit remotely at the moment, but he loves being part of a team. And he has the best of both worlds, because he can draw on the educational experts and he can basically have their knowledge imparted into him. And also, of course, those who are on site. So he really loves it. I have to say, he's enjoying every moment of it.
And what about you? He was doing his A-levels and then decided to go down this route of apprenticeship. What did you and your family think about it?
I was happy because his older brother is a software engineer, and when he was at Queen's, he had a sponsorship from a local company, and that helped him, and also it guaranteed him his placement year, and then he went on to work for them for quite a number of years. So it wasn't just as good as Workplace in that his university fees weren't paid for him, nor he didn't have a salary, a full-time salary, albeit he did get some help. And so we are aware of schemes like this. And therefore, when Caleb had shown an interest, we were absolutely delighted. Too often, we have known young people who have gone for a degree, but the prospects for employment are not that plentiful. And really, just having a degree is not everything if there's no meaningful employment. And I say, so we were delighted because Caleb, really, as I said, he is the best of both worlds.
Certainly sounds like it, doesn't it? And we'll come back to Caleb in a moment as well. I'm just keen to catch up with Vincent before that and find out a bit about Jane, Vincent, and the apprenticeship that she's doing.
Wendy, really couldn't be happier. Jane's in her 4th year of a master's degree, and she's doing civil engineering with one of Richard's companies, Atkins, and that's a design company and project management company. And Jane has just slotted into that environment of both being nurtured through work colleagues, and she's still getting her student experience, if you like, on her day release. And plus she's earning, and she is just absolutely thriving.
What about her friends and so on? I mean, Jane went to grammar school and then she moved to the Northwest Regional College, I think, didn't she? But did a lot of her friends go to uni? Did she have doubts that she might be missing out there, or?
I'm really glad you picked up on that. It was a bit of a moment. Jane was a grade A student the whole way through school, through GCSEs, and got the AS, and just it basically, I don't want to say the wheels come off, but it was a difficult period, and we just had to stop. We just had to say, look, this isn't working. What's the best thing to do? And being in a grammar school, there was a little bit of, I don't know if I would call it embarrassment, but there certainly was a little bit of, people taking a deep breath.
A free song.
Exactly. And we just said, look, you don't need to keep being on the path you're on. Let's just look at it a different way. And we went through the syllabus, or went through the colleges, picked a course that we felt was relevant, and the rest is history. Following that course, Jane was offered a place in Queen's, because the BTEC was equivalent to the ASs and the A levels. It was just a much simpler path for Jane, much simpler.
I mean, I suppose lots of us have moments like that in our either time at school, or if we go on to university or whatever. I mean, I can remember very clearly my parents' reaction when I told them I was leaving the law faculty and going to get a job on the East Antrim Times. They were just completely thrilled to bits, really. But you deal with these things, and how great that it happened kind of sooner rather than later, really.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I liked about the BTEC was it's almost like, how can I describe it? But it's like tasters of all the various different roles within the built environment. You're not focusing on any direction. You're not setting your stall out very early. You've got the particular course Jane that she could have specialized in quantity surveying, architecture, all the various professions that you can imagine in the built environment. And you just don't have that spread, if you like, on straightforward A levels. And it was fantastic to watch her getting back into her stride again.
Yeah, that's terrific, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned that she's with Atkins, one of the companies that Richard deals with, and maybe at that point I could bring Richard in here for a moment just to talk us all through what exactly Workplus is and how Workplus works, if I could put it like that, Richard.
Thanks, Wendy. It's been great to hear the stories from the parents this evening, and it's a real reminder to us to continue doing what we're doing. And really, what Workplus came from was a response to businesses really wanting to look at a new way of bringing talent into their organizations. And many of those businesses had just been thinking about graduates mostly from university, but then they noticed that they maybe were coming out and maybe didn't have the knowledge that they needed to apply directly into the workplace, and then had to, as businesses, then pay their own money to train them on the job, and they just felt, is there a better way that we could do this? And that's how Workplus started. And but for us as well, we've listened to parents and schools, young people retraining as well, maybe in jobs that they don't feel valued in, they can move as an apprentice, later in life. So listening to people on that side as well, and then trying to provide something in the middle, which can help employers have an easier way to connect with that talent and an easier way for people to apply. So for the applicants, it's like a UCAS experience, where rather than you having to go and apply to lots of different apprenticeships, you can apply in the one place, and we don't make you repeat yourself. It's a phrase that we've been using a lot. We don't want that to happen. It's a busy time. If you're a school leaver, you're doing GCSEs, A levels, ASs, you really don't want to have to apply to 6 or 7 organizations for an apprenticeship. So we're just trying to bring all that into one place by doing the work with the employers to get them coordinated. And those applications are open until next Friday at this stage.
No pressure. We heard Ian there talking about the fact that his son Caleb has been working remotely, and I suppose there's been so much on the news, both nationally and locally, over the last few days about the effect that the pandemic has had on young people. I mean, for the age range that we have here, I suppose we've all had slightly different experiences, but for teenagers at school, it's been a really weird time, and going on into apprenticeships and so on as well. Do you think that all of this has maybe made young people think more about apprenticeships and about the kind of practicalities, if you like, of life?
We've heard from countless apprentices in the last year that have started even during the pandemic that their friends are jealous with the pathway that they're on now, and that's really exciting to hear that. We have apprentices that are maybe living with their friends in their student digs, but they've got a reason to get up and get out in the morning, and maybe are fortunate enough to be outside and working on a construction site or in a manufacturing environment, and they've got money in their pocket. They don't have to worry about getting a job in their supermarket or the hospital or whatever, at the weekends or during the week. They've got that money in their pocket, and they're able to learn from people who are that bit older as well. It's lovely to hear that coming through. The sense of not just being in university with people all the same age as you, to be able to learn from people who are a bit older in the organization. And it's not just the technical aspect; it's all those core skills that we have. Empathy, communication, persuasion, negotiation, getting on with people that aren't easy to get on with, and that's what apprentices are learning from day one. And during the pandemic, some of the apprentices have been working from home, and it maybe has been more difficult for the companies, but you can see now with hybrid working as becoming the mainstream, and hopefully restrictions will ease even further in the next couple of weeks. That hybrid working has really allowed the apprentices to get back into the office, to be mentored, to also be with other apprentices as well, because they do need that.
And Maria, your son has finished his apprentice. He's now fully qualified electrician, he's self-employed, and he is very much out and about and working in Dublin at the moment. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. It was something we never thought. He's 21, so he's still young. And I could echo what Richard was saying, what his peers would, comparing that. And did we ever envisage at 21 that he would be self-employed and working in Microsoft in Dublin? And I think that has only come about because of the apprenticeship And as what Richard said, it is about the rounded skills. It's about that work readiness. And the apprenticeship enabled him in through that 1 year of COVID, that he was able to mentor trainee apprentices, first year apprentices, that he was able to be their mentor and share some of his skills. And then just before Christmas, he thought he needed to stretch himself a wee bit further, and thought that he needed to build his life skills. He has a vision, and his aim and vision is to establish his own business, to employ people. That is what his goal is. And he knew that he needed to grow his experience and grow his knowledge. So he took the risk of resigning from his paid employment to become self-employed through a really good company that they have established a lot of self-employed electricians. He has grown his network, grown his experience, and his confidence is the most important thing. He's able to communicate. He's he commutes daily to Dublin, which is no mean feat for a 21-year-old, but he's committed to it. And I think the apprenticeship route has taught him about commitment, about resilience, about work readiness, and about giving it a go. And as a parent, I'm so proud that he will take that risk, and he has taken that risk, and it has really paid off, because we have seen him flourishing as a young person. He's 22 next month, and compared to some of his friends, he just seems to be confident and has a direction and has a goal in his mind. So yeah, it's a big step, but an important step for him to take.
That's a great story too.
Yeah.
Ian, Caleb you mentioned he'd been working from home. Has he got back into the office at all now? And if that's the case, is that broadening his horizons a bit for him? And it does make such a difference, doesn't it, when you can actually talk to other people? It's lovely talking to all of you today, but it's not quite the same. Sure, it's not.
No, he has 6 months of his apprenticeship covered now. The first 4 months were hybrid, where he was in the office and remote. His teaching at university has so far all been face-to-face, no remote learning. So that has been good for him. At the moment, the office is still closed, but I would envisage it will open quickly. Actually, the company has been so successful, even during lockdown, they now have more employees than they have space for. So hybrid working will continue, I would think, for quite some time. But he likes the mix. But he certainly does like to get into the office. He likes to rub shoulder to shoulder with others who are in the same situation as himself, and he certainly has benefited from that. But he's enjoying it, even with the remote learning and the remote working. He's still really, really enjoying it.
And for you talked about how your other son was in software as well. Well, was there a moment at all for you where you wondered if the full-time education route might have been preferable in some way for Caleb, or were you just perfectly comfortable with the way that he decided to go?
Probably when my first child was born, I reckoned he would be a professor somewhere someday and lead the world in some direction. But after a while, you sort of realize that all their children have different pathways to go, and if they find job satisfaction and contentment, that's more important than perhaps doing something that I want them to do. When Caleb was doing his A-levels, he had the top, O-levels, he had the top GCSE mark in mathematics in Northern Ireland. He got an award for it. So I had mentioned to him a few times about perhaps Cambridge, Oxford, somewhere like that. But I think that was more about me than him. He had his heart set on software engineering, and that's where he was going to go. And I'm delighted that I didn't try to push him in any direction at all, because people talk about a happy wife is a happy life. Well, a happy son is also a happy life. And when your child is content and happy, and we know he's in Belfast, he's enjoying it, he's in a safe environment, and he's earning money. And as I think Maria has said, he now is the envy of many of his peers. Caleb has a fascination with shoes. I know I'm going off a little bit here, I don't know where he gets it from, certainly not from me. And he's able to buy new shoes when he wants. So he's absolutely delighted. He has money in his pocket. He's enjoying it, and he is gaining work experience. And he's still, obviously, with the university as well. He's still, his education is still being enhanced.
It's a real kind of win-win.
I can only. It is the best of both worlds, and I keep repeating that. For him, it was a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer, and we were delighted when he was accepted. I know that when particularly we lived in Belfast in the early years, and when you get the children into primary school, there was always a lot of the primary schools were oversubscribed, and then so you want to get them into a school, and then when it came to the transfer exam, you hope that they do well in it, and then try to get them placed into a school. Then when you have them in a school, you're concerned about the GCSEs, and then the ASs, and then the A levels, and then you start to think about university, and it's never ending. And it's great for Caleb to go into this apprenticeship scheme. And we obviously don't know what the future holds with any of us, but as far as we can see ahead, his future is very much lined up for him. He should, God willing, in 4 years' time, he'll have his degree, but he'll have 4 years work experience, and he hopefully will continue with the company he's with, and he'll really be a senior developer at that stage, and will be in a position to earn even more of a salary. And so it's for us as parents, it's great just to see the contentment and the peace that he has.
Absolutely, and it seems to be really enjoying it as well from what you're saying, Ian. But Vincent, Jane has been going gangbusters at Atkins, and has had the chance to work on some really huge projects, hasn't she?
Yeah, again, I would call it like it's a career-defining role that she's doing now at the moment, or certainly a project that she's on. She's working in the Belfast flood defence programme, and Jane has been lucky that her apprenticeship started at the early design process, and Jane's in the project management team. So Jane was exposed to every bit of the design process, which then led to the tendering process, which has now led to the construction element of it, to the site works, if you like. And Jane's been exposed to everybody throughout that. She's been involved with clients. She's had to deal with landowners where there's areas that have to be vested, and essentially she's had to speak with tenants, with landlords, and it's just an incredible thing, you know, that she has been, that she's grown a confidence in that, and that she now has become the point of reference for that project for the senior members in her team, because the very nature of teams is that a designer designs it, and then the costing people cost it, and the tendering people do that. But Jane has been that constant line throughout, and it's a brilliant thing to see.
I mean, that's terrific from a developmental point of view for her, isn't it? You know, to have access to all of those different levels, and those people don't forget you, particularly, you know, if they're helping you along the way, then they remember you, you remember them, and that always bodes well, doesn't it?
Exactly. And then if you try to study that sort of thing, it becomes a theory, you know, like a project that isn't tangible. You know, it's not recognizable. You know, it's just something that you've made up. Whereas as you have rightly said, Jane has made connections with numerous people that is going to remember what they did and what she did, and she'll meet them people throughout her career.
I remember Jackie Henry, who's the current main partner of Deloitte's in Northern Ireland, and a very senior partner of Deloitte's in worldwide, telling a great story about whenever she started there. because there were very few women in the office. I'm choosing my words carefully here, but the tea lady went off for a fortnight, and Jackie was asked to take the tea trolley around. She was really thrilled, as you can imagine. But actually, she said it was the best thing that ever happened to her, because she got to meet everybody, from the guy on the very top floor to the one on the very bottom floor. And she had that kind of connection for the rest of her time there. But I know it's a very different situation but with your daughter, but just that business of meeting in different ways people who are greatly senior to you can be an enormous bonus. And it's, I suppose, in some ways, Richard, that's one of the things about an apprenticeship, isn't it? You know, if it's run well by the company, and the companies that buy into this do so because they're as enthusiastic about it all as you are in Workplus, and indeed as the young people are who want to get one of these apprenticeships. And it really does mean then that you get that kind of boost, doesn't it? I hate to use one of Boris's words, but you know, there is a bit of kind of boosterism then that goes on there, where you're all in it together.
Yeah, it's really come through, Wendy, and anything that you hear me say or anyone in our team or see Workplus, it's a reflection of the businesses that we're working with. We're not dragging businesses to the apprenticeship table. You know, they want to be there because they see this as a better way of bringing talent into their organizations, and they know it's part of a better story for this place. That the story of people leaving school and finding meaningful work, to use Ian's word, finding contentment in their work. That, like, well, what more could we want for our people at any stage of their lives? And we're seeing that happen much earlier with apprentices, and the culture is moving around this, and it's great to hear from parents this evening who have taken that step, and in a way, I suppose, are role models for others that are on this webinar and others that might listen back on demand. But that's what we need. We need to share this message a lot more broadly. We spoke at a school principals conference a couple of months ago, so it was an opportunity we had to go and speak at that, and about 80 school principals were in the room, and some of them were very, very supportive. But by the end of talking to them, you could see that their eyes were open to it. And the challenge there that most of the principals left us with was, well, how do we change the minds of parents? Because we're bought in. I know we push, you know, league tables, and we're interested in results, but we know that we're going to have to look that young boy or young girl in the eye whenever we meet them in the street in 5 years' time, and we're going to ask them, "What are you up to now?" And wouldn't it just be great if they were able to say, "Well, can I get you a coffee?" or "Can you look at my new shoes?" or whatever, because I've got money in my pocket. I'd love to tell you about it, because I'm not in student debt and I'm making a real difference. And I think it's just lovely to hear, even from 3 very different apprentices, the difference that they're making. You know, the work that Brendon is doing with Microsoft and giving people work, but also the impact of the work that he's doing. To hear about the protection work that Jane's doing, protecting us all from rising sea levels. And then Caleb is creating some amazing software products that we'll rely on to run our digital lives. So it's just remarkable to hear the breadth of that story, and that sense of purpose that apprentices have comes across really strong, that they know what they're about. They're using their head and their hands and their abilities to do things which ultimately make a real difference in people's lives.
You talked about how do you change the culture, and you and I have talked on many occasions, Richard, about apprenticeships. Richard used to be a guest from time to time on Inside Business when I was doing that on BBC Radio Ulster. And as I said to him at that stage, I was an apprentice. I'd served my indentures with the Belfast Telegraph newspapers, so it's the same difference really. But there was definitely a fairly long period of time where there was a sniffiness about apprenticeships, and you know, an apprentice was somebody, you know, they did that because they couldn't do something which was regarded as being better. But you somehow or other, Richard just kind of pinpointed this at the right time, because there's been such a shift, hasn't there, in the last few years?
It really started before COVID, but I think COVID has brought it to the fore even more, because the labour market, the job market, has been so destabilised by COVID. In a way, it's shaken up some sectors that maybe weren't that sustainable, and it's grown lots of others. We've heard of lots of technology businesses. Ian's alluded to Instill, but you can't miss the fact that the likes of Amazon and other businesses have rocketed because of COVID. So there's been this reorganization of the way jobs are being created, and one of the best ways to get people from one sector into another, I know we've talked a lot about school leavers, say that get them from one sector into another, is to become an apprentice, and they can do that. And for us, we've been in this space now, as you say, Wendy, for quite a few years, but it's been really great to see the changes happen. But it fundamentally comes down to, let's not just dismiss a word because of what we think that word means. The perception of it, an apprenticeship, what would be the expectation of that? It's hair and beauty, it's motor vehicle, it's plumbing, it's carpentry, it's low level skills. As you say, it's for people who didn't really do well enough. But at the heart of it, it's about learning things and then applying those things and then learning how to do them better. And that's what we do right throughout life. It's a real model for us all. Now, we're not all studying degrees or whatever, but we're learning every day. We're listening to other people. We're thinking, right, okay, well, can I apply that there? Can we do that better? Or it's just a constant way of being human. And I think we need to recognize that. And, there's a lot being said at the minute about our education system. There's a review of that. There's a review of our skills system as well. And part of what we need in that space is to look at the education and skills system as a single system that are both connected. You can't just view school and fund it to say, well, we're going to fund people to get good GCSEs and A levels, and that's it. That's an end in itself, because it's never an end. It's just a step in the process. So with an apprenticeship, we're trying to bring that approach where we're recognizing that the apprenticeship, we're all apprentices. We are right throughout our lives. We're learning and we're doing, and we're learning how to do things better. And it's just trying to formalize that in a way that can help people get into the right sorts of jobs and not risk going and doing qualifications that maybe won't lead them to the right job, but it was sold so well to them by the college or the university or by their parents, but there was no job at the end. Whereas with an apprenticeship, there's a job right from the start, and we've heard that this evening.
Just by the way, I know that there are lots of other people who are online as well. You're muted at the moment while I'm talking to our panelists, but do please go into the Q&A section and fire your questions in, and I'll make sure that I ask as many of them as I possibly can. I've been having a wee look there, but there aren't any in just yet. So do please send us your questions. Ian, do you think that perception of apprenticeships is changing? I mean, what about your friends and so on? Did they look at Caleb and think, gosh, I wish my kids had done that instead of ending up with a £27,000 debt or whatever?
Yes, I remember speaking to one father and I was explaining what Caleb was hoping to do, and he was a little bit anti. He feared this would tie you to an employer, and he could see a lot of pitfalls with it. Just actually last week, he said to me, I can't see any downsides now at all. I think just something Richard mentioned, and I think this is true, and it's not always easy to be general, but I believe the employers who take part in this scheme really have an interest in their employees and really want to invest in them. And I've seen that with Caleb, and I've seen that the company really is interested in him. They want to see him develop. And it's good for me as a parent to know he's with a company who cares, who company's not there just what they can get out of him, but they're putting quite a lot into Caleb as well. And I'm sure that's true of all who are in the apprenticeship scheme. I remember a few years ago speaking to a mum, and I was just asking her what her son was doing. And she said he's working for a BMW garage. He's doing an apprenticeship. He will come out as a fully trained mechanic. She says he has no student loan, he has no debt. He's been well paid as he's training, and he's practically guaranteed a job at the end of it. And I thought that is a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. I have a good friend who studied in London, and between student loans and debt, she come out of university with something like £80,000 debt, which she will never pay off. She earns enough to pay some of it off, but it'll certainly never be paid off in her lifetime. And it is hanging over her head, no matter what way you look at it. So I think the perception is changing. And I think if the message gets out to parents, I think more and more will be interested. And I was certainly relieved when Caleb was accepted. We rejoiced. It was like winning something when he was accepted into the scheme. And I say my perception hasn't changed one little bit.
At that point, Vincent, about the company being invested is an interesting one. I was doing a podcast for Ulster University a while ago, which was also about apprenticeships, and one of the employers was saying how much he enjoyed having his was a higher level apprentice who was at Ulster University, and he just loved it. He said that this guy came back every week and he had new ideas and different things to put into the business, and it had got to the point where everyone was asking him, oh well, what did you learn this week? You know, what can you tell us about that maybe we haven't known up to now? Has that been Jane's experience, that Atkins are keen to learn from her as much as she's keen to learn from them?
Absolutely. Every company wants you to do it their way. They want you to understand their processes and the way they are. And ultimately, that's what a graduate program is. A graduate program, when somebody leaves university, generally they'll go into a graduate program, and that's that start of that conditioning, that company conditioning. This is the way we do it. You may have learned that, but this is the way it is in real life. From the get-go, Jane had that from the start. So she almost became embedded in them systems. And again, she became a point of reference, and she didn't know any other way. She didn't know any other way of any other approach to it, bar that company's way. It was just a breath of fresh air, I believe, to the senior managers, because they just felt this is working. This actually is something that we're doing right. Whereas there would always be that, I'm not saying a challenge, but certainly somebody coming in with a completely different learned experience will try to apply that rather than the company's direction.
Yeah, it's a different ball game, isn't it? But what about Brendon now, Maria? He's working away in Dublin. He's gone out on his own, which is a big step to take. I did that too at one stage. Your safety net has disappeared to a degree, hasn't it? Although the mum and dad are always very helpful at times like that. But he has a real ambition now, hasn't he? And you mentioned that he had been able to mentor apprentices who were more junior than he.
Absolutely, and I think that opportunity for other young people would not present itself only if they are completing the apprenticeship route, because they are learning. And he took a pride in coming home to tell us about how he was supporting, a 16-year-old come in as a first-year apprentice. And he did forget what it was like for himself back at 16. But I do feel those opportunities are not you can't avail of that unless you are an apprentice. And I think looking at the bigger picture, having a young person that has real life work experience, coming out highly educated and qualified, has rounded employability skills at a young age of 21, to then share that with a young person is priceless. It's absolutely fantastic.
We've got quite a few questions coming in from the rest of you. Hello, everybody. The first one says, if my child, these are I think for you, Richard, because they're a bit technical. If my child went to the SRC, Southern Regional College, I'm guessing for a 1 to 2 years level 3 course, would they still be able to do a level 3 apprenticeship?
Okay, that's a great question. So So just maybe for everyone else, there are different levels of apprenticeship. So, and the lowest level would be a level 2, and you need to have a few GCSEs at D to G grade to get onto that type of apprenticeship. And then if you've got 5 A star to C grade GCSEs, you could get on to what's called a level 3 apprenticeship. So if they do a level 3 course, it depends what course that is in. So say, for example, they do it in health and social care or childcare at level 3, and then they want to apply for a level 3 apprenticeship in childcare, they would be able to do that. But if they, for example, did a childcare course at level 3 and then applied to civil engineering level 3 apprenticeship, because it's in a different subject area, then they would be funded to do that. So it just depends on the technicality of which sector it's in. It needs to be in 2 different sectors.
Okay. Malcolm is with us as well, and he's wondering, can we have information emailed to us parents on this great programme?
Definitely, there'd be an email follow-up following this call, and that would be an opportunity to find out more. And we also have a very focused session coming up called an apprenticeship clinic, and it's coming up later this week on Thursday. It's at Thursday lunchtime from 1 to 1:45, and it goes deep into the application process, and we'll tell you a bit more about the opportunities that are available through Workplus. So we'll be sending out a note about that as well.
Well, now that you've mentioned that, Richard, let me just kind of stay with that for a moment, because the application process, I know you say that it's, it gets rid of that business of having to do it 6 times for 6 different companies, but could you give us a flavour of how it actually does work through Workplus?
Yeah, sure. It's probably best at this stage if I was to share a browser just to walk through that. So hopefully everyone's able to see our website. So if you're a parent and trying to advise your son or daughter about apprenticeships, you can come here and explore the opportunities that are available, or you can just read more about it. So we just click on read more here. You can see a bit about what an apprenticeship actually is. There's a little animated video there you can watch just to tell you a bit about what Workplus is. And we've heard some of the benefits this evening, and these are just brought out in this very clear graphic. And then we can see here that this is the time frame. So applications are closing next Friday. There's a week for shortlisting, and then 3 weeks for interviews. And then it means that employers will make offers no earlier than the 20th of March. And it's just trying to coordinate that so it's easier for everyone to engage with. And there's a bit more information here about the employers that we're working with. I'll just give you a quick look at those. So there are around 50 employers that we're working with, and a couple more who are interested in come on board. They're in touch today, so hopefully they'll be on board by the time you get to apply. As you can see, there's good variety. Manufacturers, software development companies, professional services, some charities are involved as well, trying to build out their teams, and the likes of Young Enterprise, which works in our schools network, that encourage entrepreneurship within our schools. They're looking for 2 development officers. So there's a really nice variety of businesses, and you can have a look at those at your leisure. Say, for example, you want to find out a bit more about one particular company, you can just click on their logo if they have created a profile, and it tells you a bit about them. So this is an accountancy firm, and their main location is based in South Belfast. The roles will mostly be based in an office. They've currently got 39 employees and 1 female apprentice. And then you can go in and apply to that particular opportunity with that company. And there's also a bit more about each of the companies, the type of place they're going to work, and the sort of days out that you may have if you work in that business. So trying to give you as much context as possible. We'll not click through on the opportunity just at this point. I want to go back to the home page just to let you see what that actually looks like. So if we go back to this page and go to Apprenticeship Explorer, then this allows you to see all the opportunities that are available. So there are over 200 types of apprenticeships, but for the companies that we're working with, there are currently 34 opportunities in these sectors. You can go in and find out a bit more about the organisation through this way as well. We mentioned Muldoon and Company already. Or if you just go in and you definitely know the company you want to work for, then you can just click on that. You've heard Vincent talk about Atkins so much tonight. You want to go and work for them? That would be great. So you can go in and view the opportunities that are available. And then you'll see that for this civil engineering apprenticeship, there are actually a variety of companies alongside Atkins, but you can click here and find out a bit more about the Atkins job description, which gives you a bit more information on the particular role, the types of things you'll be doing. There's a case study there of one of their apprentices. And then you can go ahead and click apply. And you create one profile, which can then be used across multiple apprenticeships. So you can apply to software development, civil engineering, accountancy, manufacturing, all in the one place. So it's really easy to do that. So that's the application process. It's much easier than you have to go and do this with lots of different companies at different times of the year and being tuned into that. So that's part of the pain that we're trying to relieve you of.
That's absolutely fascinating, I must say, and interesting. I thought it was very interesting that the different elements that you've included in that, like, for instance, how many apprentices that they have had are still there. That's a terribly ungrammatical sentence, for which apologies, but you know, because you wouldn't want to go to a company that had had an apprentice and they'd hated it so much that they'd all left. So that's quite useful information, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we're trying to give you as much context as possible, rather than just saying, here are a list of companies, we'll send them your CV and you'll maybe hear back sometime. That just feels like it's suboptimal for everybody. So let's try and make it as easy as possible, and focus it so that you can apply to multiple apprenticeship types. Because we realize that at the age of maybe 16, 17, 18, if you're a school leaver, you might not know exactly which pathway you want to go down, but it allows you to apply to a few different ones.
I see that one of the elements that you do very sensibly include is the financial remuneration packages, I think it's known these days, the filthy lucre. What about money? I mean, how does it work in terms of salary and fees and so on?
Well, an apprenticeship is a job, and I think it's really important that we say it for what it is. It's not a course that you get a work placement on. It is a job, first and foremost. It's a contract with the employer. Hopefully that's come across this evening. But then for typically 1 day a week, you'll go to one of the training providers, whether it's a college or a private training provider or a university, depending on the type of apprenticeship that you're doing. And the employer will help you with that. And you need to make that application separately from Workplus, unfortunately, but we do give you a lot of guidance around that, so you can apply to the particular course at the same time. But it is a job, and therefore it's paid. So the companies that we're working with are paying up to, for this particular type of apprenticeship, which is the degree level apprenticeship, up to 19,000 as the starting salary. And again, that's the sense that these companies are wanting to make it better news that an apprenticeship is not just a low paid job where you'll be making tea and that's it. You will be doing great work and you'll be paid well for it. And that's just the starting salary. Some of the apprentices I've spoken to are well beyond that. Some are even nearly doubling that within a few years. So it's a fantastic way to get into an organization and start to become part of the fabric. And I think we've heard that today, even from the parents that have spoken about how very quickly the apprentices become part of the team, and they really are another member of staff, and they're not looked down upon at all. They're a vital member.
And there's a couple of questions, you've kind of answered them actually, Richard, in that last reply, but someone saying, I was wondering what college is this through? Cheryl is asking, where does the teaching stroke learning take place? And you mentioned that there, but maybe you just go over that wee bit again.
Yes, maybe good again if I just reshare this, and then we can have a look at an example. So let's take, for example, this civil engineering apprenticeship at Atkins. So you can see this is the job description from the company, and then the applicable courses. So this company has said to us that we are interested in the apprentice going to Belfast Met to do the civil engineering course there. So they can then click. You can click here. You can find out a bit more about that course, the type of things you'll be studying in year 1, year 2. What award you'll get, foundation degree, validated by Ulster University, and then it's funded for people who are 18 and over, and then a bit about the entry criteria. which is quite lengthy, but there's a lot of equivalent qualifications out there. Gives you the duration and the start date and the end date, and then talks a bit about the progression pathway as well. So once you complete that, you can then go on to a degree apprenticeship in that area as well. And then it's a case of clicking on the apply, click here to apply to this course, and then that will take you to the Ulster or to the Belfast Met website where you can apply to that apprenticeship as well.
That's true. That's terrific. I'm going to come back to you again in a second, Richard, but I'd just like to go back to Vincent and Ian and Maria again for a moment. Vincent, Jane's obviously doing both her work on the flood prevention thing in Belfast and also her academic work as well. She could become a chartered engineer then very shortly after graduating, couldn't she?
Yes, again, that's one of the sort of untold secrets about this. To be chartered in any engineering profession, you have to have a documented work history. So postgrads have got quite a bit to do before they can get chartered. As soon as Jane qualifies, or as soon as Jane gets her degree, she will have her industry experience and she can apply for chartership straight away. Which, if we're talking about salary, if we're being crude about it, that's where the real steps are. That's when you really start to see pay raises.
We all like those, whether the governor of the Bank of England likes it or not, don't we?
Exactly.
I'm just thinking, with the three of you here, we could put the three of you together. Jen could get the big jobs. Caleb could draw up the software, and Brendon could run the entire electrical team and make it all function properly. But Maria, it's been a great journey for Brendon, and it's obvious how proud you are of the fact that he's got to where he is and has these real ambitions and plans for the future. And I was very interested to hear about that. My grandpa was a heating, plumbing, and electrical engineer, and he had his own firm for a long time. And I can remember him when I was a little girl drawing these. He loved a good plan to do all these wiring plans and so on. But he's doing well. For the parents who are with us, and there are quite a few parents who are listening to us all this evening, what would you say to them if this was an option for their child?
I would absolutely be totally in support of it. And I think as a parent, I can remember when my son received his GCSE results, he had decided this was the option he was going to. And then I felt as a parent, the guilt, is this the right option, that he wasn't going to go down the degree university line? But I'm so pleased that I stuck to my guns and he stuck to his guns and went to the college. Because I think learning is for life. And I think all of us as adults in the world of work realize that just because you qualify or you receive, qualify with a degree or whatever that is at the age of 21, 22, that is not the end of it. And that is not what employers are looking for. So for me, as a parent talking to the other parents on this, I think look at the bigger picture, see the bigger picture. Where is your young person at 25 to 30 and what rounded skills do you want them to have? And being an apprentice, I can see how he has matured, developed, learned new skills. In his early apprenticeship, he was in places like Diageo, Bank of Ireland, Ulster Bank, and able to communicate to a wide variety of people in the workplace and learn those valuable skills you don't get at university unless you are a higher level apprentice. So for a parent, I would look at the bigger picture and really take an interest in what your young person's passionate about. And we can all change careers at any time in our life, and we've all done it. And just because you go down one path, that does not mean to say that there's not other branches that can take you down other paths. So I would really value the apprenticeship route, because to me, as an employer, and a manager of a large team, I value that young person coming to me with real life experience, a qualification, resilience, and that can-do attitude. And that is what an apprenticeship route would do. So it's to open your eyes to the possibilities, not feel like an apprenticeship is the route that is second best. I would personally see it as the forefront for my son. It's not for everybody. It's not for every child, but just really explore it and be really open to it and go out and find out. Log on to Richard's site, check out the colleges. Don't just stick in the school. Go and get advice from elsewhere. Talk to other apprenticeships. Get your young person to speak to other young people and talk to other parents like us, Ian and Vincent and myself, and keep an open mind.
That's very important, Ian, isn't it? Keep an open mind. Do follow, as Maria said there, find out what it is that your child is passionate about, and as you yourself said at the start, what they're passionate about rather than what you think they ought to be passionate about.
Yes, Caleb was asked, what advice would he give to young people thinking about an apprenticeship? And I've just written down what he said. I would say, if you know what you want to do for your career, just go for it. I've really loved it so far, and I'm exceedingly glad that this is the route I've chosen. I'm sure this gladness will only increase as I progress as a software engineer. That was the advice he was given to other young people, and I would say the same to parents. Find out what your child wants to do. Caleb, really, he joined the apprenticeship scheme. He's only been in 6 months, but he joined as a boy. Now, his mummy still says he's a boy, but he's now very much a young man, and he has matured very quickly. He's in the workplace, and I often say to him, Caleb, the good news is you're going to be in it for quite a long time, but it's good for him, and he's disciplined and really enjoyed it. And when his time is up, when he has finished his time at university, software engineers in Northern Ireland are in huge demand, and I'm sure it's not only in Northern Ireland, it's throughout the UK and the rest of the world. And so he will have 4 years experience. I would expect him to stay with the company he's with, but really, if everything goes well, he will have the world at his feet in terms of his chosen career. He'll not be coming out of university searching the Belfast Telegraph to see what openings are there. He's already there, and for a parent, I know that takes a lot of pressure off us. And I say, just to know that he's in a place where he's doing something he loves to do, it just means his mum and I are certainly very content and happy. And above all, he really, really enjoys it.
Well, that's terrific to hear, and it's lovely to see how proud all three of you are of your kids and how fantastically well they've done. And Cheryl Kennedy here, who's joining us online. No, that's not the right one. Hang on a minute here, it's disappeared. There was someone else there who said that they were really enjoying this. It was terrific to hear all of what you've had to say, and that they're really looking forward to finding out more about how it all works. And we're nearly out of time, but I just want to grab Richard for a second before we actually bring the webinar to an end. If your son or daughter is applying through Workplus, Richard, what do they do now, and how do our parents who are with us this afternoon, this evening, how do they help them along the way?
Wendy, it's there's still plenty of time to apply to the 135 apprenticeships that are on offer across all the companies that we're working with. And it's really just a case of going exploring in that apprenticeship explorer that we looked at earlier, trying to find the one that's the best fit for your son or daughter, but also, getting them to make the decision. We've had a few phone calls from mums over the last few weeks, and the mums are asking us what we think they should put on their son or daughter's application form. That's not going to work. We've heard today a real contentment in apprentices, but they have to own this process. This is the start of their career. This is their next step. It's the first step maybe into independence. So yes, encourage them, support them, guide them, but have them own the process. Our apprenticeship clinic on Thursday between 1 and 1:45 will be a great place to explore the application in more detail. My colleague Lucy Marshall will lead on that, and there will be a follow-up email which will have the registration details for that. So we'd encourage you to come along. And also, please don't leave it until 1 p.m. On Friday the 18th, because unfortunately, as soon as 1 p.m. comes, the system shuts and we won't be able to accept any late applications at all. What I would say is, as part of our application process, we've also included an aptitude test. Now, that might seem a bit strange, but what we're trying to do is to allow the personality, abilities, interests of your sons and daughters to come through in the application form before the companies even see them. And it allows for a more rounded assessment rather than just saying they got certain grades in certain things. Because if you meet the benchmark for the course, what way can we differentiate beyond that? So that's a great way to do that. So that's part of the process. We really encourage your sons or daughters to take those aptitude tests. It only take about half an hour, and it'll help them match up with the best apprenticeship for them.
Look, it's been really lovely to talk to all of you, to find out about your young people and how well they're doing, and the very best of luck to Brendon, to Caleb and to Jane for the future. It's just been fascinating. Thank you so much to Maria Rogan, Vincent McMonagle and Ian Wilson. Applications, as Richard said, close at 1 p.m. on Friday the 18th of February. That apprenticeship clinic is on Thursday, I think Richard said, from 1 to 1:45. And this session has been recorded and it'll be on the Workplus YouTube channel as well. So if you missed any of it, you can catch up with it. I know somebody at the very start said they were having difficulty getting their sound to work. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up with it either later on today or sometime in the next few days. But thanks very much indeed for joining us. I've really enjoyed it. And good luck if you're applying. Good luck to your kids if they're applying, and let's hope that this is the start of their pathway to lifelong learning. Thanks very much for being with us.